Hello, this is Glenn Delve. Thank you for checking out our Investing With Us pages. We're presuming if you found your way here, this is something that's of interest to you, and we just want to give you a short little trip through the opportunities that exist with Ocea. And by all means, when you get to the end of this, if you have any questions, we'd be glad to follow up with you and meet with you, have coffee with you and chat through your requirements. This is just designed to give you a little overview of what investing with us may look like. And when I say us, of course, I do talk about Ocea, and that includes me and my business partner, Justine, but more of her later. So what is the opportunity right now? Well, quite clearly, the UK is in the middle of a housing crisis. We are not building houses fast enough for increasing demand, and the government, I think it's fair to say, became increasingly frustrated by the delays in bringing sites forward and perhaps actually with the planning process itself. And in an effort to utilize what they considered redundant and underutilized brownfield sites consisting of a number of different building types, they chose to take some building class uses and present them with what's called a prior approval. That's a pre-approved government consent, if you like, to convert some classes of buildings, such as offices and shops, into residential property. Now, that means that the scheme provides a relatively low-risk way into the world of development, because we don't have to go through the full planning process, and it's seriously curtailed and has to be determined in 56 days. Now, the other thing that's happened is a number of the rules with regard to this prior approval process mean that we don't have to worry about things like national minimum size standard and all the normal planning regulations, which means that we can increase the number of units that we put into a site, and therefore the resultant profitability of the scheme. So that's the market opportunity that we're exploiting at the moment. What is it that Ocea is looking for, and how do we provide value to people that choose to work with us? Well, essentially, we have chosen to exploit this prior approval opportunity by specializing in particularly the commercial to residential opportunity opened up by offices. We do specialize in converting office spaces. And anybody working with us as an equity partner or an investment partner would be allocated shares within our vehicles that we use. That's a special purpose vehicle, normally a limited company, but sometimes an LLP. You'd be given shares within that for financial security. And if suitable, we can also offer a second charge behind the development finance partner, which normally has all first charges. Now, as the development partner, what we do is we manage all of the processes, essentially from the legal purchase to all the legals through the process, financial funds raising and all the financial processes, the build contract, the appointment of the contractor, the running of the contract, the exiting of the contract, and all of the sales duties with regard to selling the units at the end of the project to deliver the expected returns. Now, Ocea is a property development and training company. We're based in Southampton, and it's run by myself, Glenn Delve, and as I mentioned previously, Justine Curtis. And we have a really great team around us as well that's always growing, and comprises essentially a small property team that work with us on our property developments, a training team that work with us on all the people that we train to do what we do. I should mention just very quickly, it's not overly relevant, but it just, if you like, might provide a rounded kind of vision of who we are and what we do, that we've been chosen to be the training partner for the largest educator in property education in the UK with regard to commercial conversions, this opportunity that we're talking about at the moment. So we are very proud of that appointment, and we take it very seriously. So we have a small team in the office running the training side, a small team on the property side, and obviously we have some central resources as well, like PAs and financial function and so on. Now, we have, with several SPVs and JV partnerships, actually started to build out several projects, some of which are now finished, others of which are in build, and we have a number that are about to build. And we've worked with a number of different companies. There's one called Juggle Nation, which was effectively an umbrella name for a number of SPVs we did with one particular individual. There's a company called Westmead we've done quite a bit with, and Wessex Green Developments is just a few of the companies that we've used. Others like EDJM and a number of others are also in the background as well. And we focus on creating one-bed apartments of around 30 to 35 square meters. Not always exact, because conversion's never exact, but we focus on creating one-bed units of around that size and two-bed units of around 50 square meters, sometimes even a little bit smaller than that. And thus we are maximizing the number of units that you can get into an existing building, into a conversion, but we do so without compromising their appeal by careful selection of final finishes that convey real quality. And as a result, we create homes that are appealing despite the fact they may be a smaller footprint than people might normally expect. Now, this is a little bit about me. I'm an experienced property investor and developer. Since 2013, I've established several of these SPVs and entered into a number of JVs with different high net worth individuals and sophisticated investors to focus on this market opportunity granted by prior approval. So far, we've acquired, I think it's around about 14 or 15 large office to residential schemes. We're developing over 400 new apartments with a total GDV in excess of 70 million. That number's always changing, but that's about where it is now. It might be 70 or 80 million depending on when we've signed a scheme, but that's about right. In my background, I've previously successfully overseen a £50 million development comprising of a 5-star Hilton hotel, an 18-hole golf course, and 2 new spectator stands for about 10,000 spectators, incorporating hospitality boxes, obviously bathroom facilities and catering facilities. And that was in my prior role as the managing director of the Rose Bowl in Hampshire. Justine, prior to joining Glenn at the current business, Justine had established and developed and sold a web design business, and then established, developed, and franchised a virtual assistant business, created 2 training and mentoring companies, including one in the commercial property space with Glenn since she joined in 2014. She's also actively involved with all the current developments in Wessex Green Developments and Westmead Properties and all Ocea projects. She's also a landlord of a small portfolio and was actively involved in all of the previous completed developments within the REMA Project Management joint venture and EDJM Property Limited SPV. Justine is absolutely essential in the running of the business, in that she is brilliant at detail. She comes with a different vision and eye than Glenn does, and together they make a pretty formidable team, even though I say that myself as being part of it. But enough of us and the opportunity. What about the opportunity for you as an investor? Well, we have a couple of different ways in which you can invest with us, and even within each of those ways, there are different opportunities to look at as well. So let's look at our preferred type of investor as we move forward, what we call Type 1 investor. Now, the first opportunity for a Type 1 investor is, and effectively what we're talking about here are fixed returns. So where we're looking for a preferred investor in Type 1 is we're looking at offering fixed annualized returns to our investors. And this can be taken in 2 different ways. Number one, it could be offered as a fixed term fund. In an ideal world, what Ocea is looking for now is to give a fixed return of an amount to be agreed per annum. But that is for a fund with the period of the fund to be agreed. It could be 5 years. So what do I mean by that? Let me just very quickly explain. In an ideal world now, we're moving quite quickly. We're offered opportunities at very short notice. We're quite well established. So we often get off-market opportunities that are being offered to us before it's released to the market. And we're offered that because we're well known. We've got good track record for both buying and then delivering these developments and selling them through. The issue with that is that we're often required to move quickly. And these can require equity amounts of anywhere between £750,000 up to 2 or 3 or possibly 3.5, £4 million. Now, raising that kind of money in a short-term way is actually quite difficult. It can mean that sometimes we risk losing the opportunity that's being brought to us off market. So our ideal investment, if we woke up tomorrow and everything that we wanted was given to us in a Christmas present, would be a fund of around about £10 million for a period of 5 years at a set amount, at a set agreed rate of coupon. Now, that doesn't have to be one fund. Clearly, it might be that you're someone that could give a fund over a number of years for a set return, but it's not quite that amount. That's fine, because clearly we can obviously blend these together. But that's the kind of type 1A fixed-term fund that we would be looking for. Now, that's our ideal world, but yours may be rather more short-term, or maybe you want to try us on a bit and see how things work and see how things run and make sure that we're what we purport to be. And that's entirely accepted and reasonable. So you might be more interested in a type 1B project-specific investment. That investment would be a fixed return investment for a duration of a project, which normally tends to be 18 months to 2 years. And the return on that would be payable on full completion of the project, which means that all the units would have been sold, the freehold would have been sold, and all third-party liabilities would have been settled. The interest will be rolled up and paid on exit. There are options for periodic in-term small interest payments if people need that. But that's a nice way maybe of seeing a safe return working with us over a shorter period of time by entering into a project, one particular project on a specific basis. So that's the opportunities with what we call our type 1 investment. Our type 2 investment is quite clearly an equity share. So the type 1s are fixed returns, type 2s are equity shares. And with an equity investment in a specific project, one needs to bear in mind that you'll be sharing in both the upsides and downside risks of the project. Now, the investment will generate return on an agreed percentage split of the overall profit, and then that amount will be agreed by project. So each project will allocate a specific amount of project to the equity investors. And that would be laid out to you. If you chose to work with us in this way, we'd send you an investor pack outlining the particular opportunity for this particular development, along with an analyzer showing how that had been calculated. Now, in the event that your investment is only part of the full equity requirement within an individual specific project, then the proportion of the profit split paid to you would be pro rata on the proportion of the equity provided by the individual investment. So it's all absolutely fair, and it does mean that you can enter in something that may have a bigger equity requirement than maybe you can raise. With the equity that you've put in and then the profits that you would have earned, that is both returned and distributed once all the units and freehold are sold and third-party liabilities are settled. And if you are taking this option because you're entering into a risk and under the terms of FTA, we would be required to get a form completed by you to certify yourself as either a high net worth individual or a sophisticated investor. And you'll probably have to provide a scan of the photo page of your passport for anti-money laundering purposes as well. So that's our type 2 equity investment. Now, clearly there is a blend that we haven't actually outlined here in a slide, which is some people like a degree of fixed return and a degree of equity return. If that's you, just get in touch with us. That's something we can discuss and have worked with we've worked with a number of investors on that basis. We thought it might be appropriate just to give you an idea of some of the things we've done, to give you some comfort, we hope, that we do actually know what we're doing, and we've been doing this for a little while. So here's our first case study. It was one of our earlier projects, Prospect House in Farnham. This was an office that we converted to 9 units, just under 4,000 square feet. You can see some pictures in the upper right-hand corners there of what it used to look like. And we purchased this for about $390,000. The overall gross development value was $1.7 million. We made a good profit on that, and the timescale was sufficient that the investor earned around a 50% return on that. Our second case study is Hampton House down in Southampton. This was an office, again, to 30 units. We purchased it for just over £1 million, and it exited with a GDV of about £4 million. And now, this was a slightly longer time scale. We had some tenants in there when they went in, and that was accepted that we would have a long stop period to allow them to relocate. So we didn't actually exit this deal until about June 2017, although I have to say the contractor actually finished around about the end of 2016. And the investor for this wanted a fixed return of 10%, which is clearly what we paid, plus a percentage uplift of the profit, and that's what they got. So it was a fixed return offer. This is what the investor wanted, and there was a small profit element on top of that. In our third case study, Normandy House in Hemel Hempstead, this was a slightly larger scheme to 39 units, and the purchase price was £3.3 million. It was a much more expensive area than in Southampton. Build cost about £2.9 million with a GDV of about 8.9. Now, the completion of this project was due in August. It's actually going to complete in September 2017. And the investor return is a 35% annualized return. That investor has a specific gate. That is the investor's gate. And once he's hit that gate, then the returns, the greater profits on that return come to us as the developer. So we can be fairly certain that that investor return is about 35%. And again, it gives an idea of how flexible we can be in structuring investor terms. This is the fourth case study. This is actually the office in which I'm currently sat, and we're about to move out of because it's making way for a conversion. Now, the actual existing unit is going to 32 apartments, but in fact, we've just been given permission to add another floor, and I believe we'll be back up to about 39 apartments with that. Overall, gross development value of this site is about £7 million, and with a projected profit of £1.8 million. And actually, this is the same investor that we've used on the previous project. This is the investor that wants a 35% annualized return, and that is what this investor will get. It was bought in September 2016, but we knew that we were going to have about this year and a bit, in fact, it's going to be about 13 months, where there were a number of tenants that we were moving out whilst we went and got prior approval, and then went for the planning uplift for the extra floor. And of course, that worked quite well. The extra time taken to get the planning consent was not too painful because we had the rent coming in from the tenants that were left in the building. But now we're about to get vacant possession on that, and construction actually starts in November. I think it starts with the strip out, and we expect to finish the whole thing by the end of next year. And I think the final case study we've got for you is St Pancras in Basingstoke. In fact, no, we have got one more after this. The fifth case study for you is St Pancras in Basingstoke. We recently purchased this in May for just over £1 million. It's a smaller scheme for us now, 20 units. Gross development value of about £3.5 million. This will be a really quick one. It's going to be vacant at the end of September, so literally 3 weeks after I'm actually recording this study for you, and we will be on site in October as soon as tenants moved out. It's a fairly short build, we think 7 to 8 months, and this will complete by May next year. And we're expecting to be pretty much sold by the time it completes because there's only 20 units in there to sell. And the way we work, just so you know, is whenever an office is or the office conversion is underway, we actually have a brochure done and we instruct sales agents to sell off plan so that we minimize the period at the end where we're waiting for sales to complete and the money to come into the bank and therefore pay our investors back. And a quick look at another one we bought in May this year. This is Coates House in Nailsea near Bristol. This is obviously a larger scheme into 56 units with an estimated gross development value of between 9 and 10 million. And clearly, therefore, a slightly larger estimated profit of 2.5 million. This is a scheme that's going to start sometime at the beginning of 2018 in January or February. It's quite a big scheme. It's probably going to take about 10 to 11 months to build out. And therefore, we'll be launching this to the market around about that August, September time next year. I'm hoping to sell by early 2019. Now, how do we deliver these projects? You may be thinking, well, this is obviously a fairly small team. How are they delivering all this? Well, that's because we work with a very highly leveraged model using some select people that we have found that we call our power team, that we trust, we know, they know us, we know them, they know what we like. And I want to just introduce you to them very quickly. So our brilliant planning consultant is Paris Smith, Ruth Harding more specifically. It is a planning team, but Ruth is the person we work most with. We also use Paris Smith for our conveyancing. There's a fantastic lady there called Emma Pope who does most of our conveyancing at the front end when we buy the building. And then there's actually a lady called Judith Williams that does the conveyancing of all the units that we sell. Our architects are Snug Architects. The principal there is Paul Bulkley, but again, we work with a number of architects within their firm. I'll come back to the contractors in a little while, but our project management company is Gleeds, and we always use one chap called Tom Churchill. And there's a reason for that. We agreed with Gleeds that we'd use Tom for all our projects because Tom knows our product, he knows how we like to work, he knows the kind of things we want from our professionals, and he is a really, really good man. We've worked with him, we've got to know him, and we all work really well as a good, tight team. And our accountants are Ray Khan, Morris Accountants in Southampton. But let's go back to the contractor. We use design and build contracts, generally speaking. If we are working in an area where we don't know of any contractors, then we will go out to tender. That tender will be led by Gleeds, and clearly we'd never tender with less than 4 people on the tender list. What we've increasingly found, though, is that now we've done a few schemes, sometimes we go back to contractors that we know and that we trust. Either we include them specifically in a tender list, or in fact sometimes we go to a negotiated contract. It's still design and build, but we actually just negotiate the price up front based on schemes that they've done before, delivered for us before, knowing the quality we're looking for. So we hope that's been helpful. Just a kind of summary of what we do and how you can work with us. We work through a series of special purpose vehicles. We specialize in the conversion of office to residential apartments. These developments have been located around the south of England in areas from Southampton, Eastleigh, Farnham, Hemel Hempstead, Nailsea near Bristol. We've just picked up one in High Wycombe. So you could really say we're M4, M3 corridor. We use prior approval, and we stick to a proven model, both in terms of the unit sizes and the specification we use. And by doing that, we've managed to de-risk the conversion model and actually reduce the risk for us, for our investors, and for everybody working in our team. And through iterating all the time, responding to our learnings on the smaller projects as we started through to the bigger projects we're taking on now, we're consistently improving our figures for reducing costs and increasing profitability as we complete these larger schemes. We do hope that that's been of interest to you. By all means, if you are interested in working with us, please do get in touch with us at Ocea, and I really look forward to chatting with you. We do understand that no investor is the same as another. If you're interested in working with us, please be assured that we will deal with you all individually. We'd be very happy to meet you for coffee and find out what your requirements are and what you're looking for from a partner that works with you. We look forward to speaking to you. We look forward to drinking coffee with you. And more importantly, we look forward to having fun and making some money on the journey. Thanks for listening and watching these slides. Please do get in touch if you're interested in working with us. Bye for now.